Okay, so absolute value is the distance from a number is from 0. So it's the distance a number is from 0. It is easier to conceptualize from a number line. So most of the time when we're talking about absolute value, we would talk about it from a number line. So now we have 2 bullet points here. 2 things. Distances, they can't be negative. So distances can't be negative. So that in turn means that absolute value can't be negative. So because we can't ever have negative distances, then our absolute value can't be negative either. Okay, and we use 2 straight bars to write absolute value. So like how this first example, these 2 bars, that means absolute value. So those bars there mean absolute value. Okay, so we kind of treat these like parentheses. So treat like parentheses. And by that, I mean you always do what's inside the absolute value before you do anything else. So we're talking about a longer expression. Okay, so let's look at this. What is the value of the absolute value of -8 minus 2? So what is -8 minus 2? That would be -10. So now we have to figure out the absolute value of -10, which -10 is 10 places from 0. If it helps, we have to simplify what's inside the parentheses first, or inside the absolute values first, which is how we get -10. And if you really need to see it, you can draw a number line. We go from -10 to 0, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places away if you were to draw all the numbers. Okay, so we talked about square roots, but now we're going to talk about fourth roots or cubic roots. So in order to solve these, we could plug these into the calculator, and I'll show you how to do that in class. Or you can start thinking square roots. When we did the square root of something, we also wrote them as perfect squares, as like 1 squared or 2 squared, and so on and so forth. So since we're talking about fourth roots, then we can simply try to find the perfect fourths. So 1 to the 4th power is 1. Now find 2 to the 4th and 3 to the 4th. And 4, 5, 6, so on and so on until you get 625. So pause the video now and do that. Alright, so moving on, hopefully you got the right answer for that. Now we're going to talk about simplifying square roots inside absolute values. So again, we treat absolute values like parentheses, so we have to work what's inside the absolute values first. So everything else stays what it is. The opposite of the absolute value of 3 times the square root of 4, which the square root of 4 is 2, and absolute value plus 5. Then again, we do what's inside, so 3 times 2 is 6. So we have the opposite of 6 plus 5. So now we really have -6 plus 5, which is -1. Okay, so again, we just worked our way down until we simplified it. I want you to try this next one on your own. Some helpful hints. Evaluate the 3 to the negative 2 first, then evaluate the square root of 162. What's going to be helpful with this is to really simplify as much as possible. Okay, so I want you to pause, and when you're done working and unpause, then the answer will be up. So I want you to try to see if our answers match. If they don't, flag this problem and ask it in class tomorrow, okay? So the answer to that should have been the square root of 2. Okay, and I want you to do the same thing for this next problem. Again, really focus on what's inside the parentheses. Then don't forget about what happens with negative square roots. They get bumped down. Then talk about that too. Okay, so be really careful here. So again, pause the video. When you unpause, the answer will be up there for you. Okay, so the answer to that was 1/8. Again, if you have any questions on these last two, please ask me how I got them. So if you have questions on this one or this one, please come see me for help, because these are going to be the types of problems that you see later on in the unit, on the construct responses, on the tests, and on the keystones, okay? So get working on that homework problem, and good luck. It's a doozy.